Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen and welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut FLEXpectations, our weekly look ahead at the boxing cards to come over the weekend. It's 4:30 p.m. every Thursday for us, and this weekend there's three relatively major shows happening. One particularly big, which hosts the biggest fight of 2020 in my view. But I'm not going to talk about that because we've got loads of content going up on Vasily Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez. I'll direct your attention to Bob Arum's preview of the fight, which, if you're a UK resident and you comment on it, you can still win a free pass to watch it on Fight TV here in the UK. And also, myself and Joe Lee filmed a Keys to Victory yesterday, which is now live, draft style piece where we go back and forth and take keys to victory for each man. And I think we did a pretty good job, but I'm sure the YouTube commenters will let us know one way or the other. So for this FLEXpectations, I'm going to focus on the UK-based action for the weekend. And there's two main shows. One is the Matchroom event in Peterborough on Saturday night, which has had a bit of an up and down road to fruition, it has to be said. It started off with 7 fights on the bill, went down to 6, then went down again to 5, and is now back up to 6, at least for now, because, as I will explain, that could still be in jeopardy. So it started off, I found out when I interviewed Cash Farouk recently, the interview hasn't gone live yet, but he told me his return, the former British bantamweight champion, has been pushed back a couple of weeks, so he's no longer on the Peterborough show on Saturday night. So then we knew it had gone down from 7 fights to 6. And then obviously, as most people will know by now, Peter Fury tested positive for COVID-19, the trainer of Savannah Marshall, which put paid to the vacant WBO female middleweight title fight between Marshall and Hannah Rankin. Hannah Rankin predictably devastated, of course. I spoke to her last night. I'm sure Savannah Marshall is too. I've wished Peter Fury all the very best in his recovery, and the fight will hopefully be rescheduled before the end of the year. So we were down at 5, and then due to probably conversations behind closed doors as much as the Twitter exchange that a lot of people saw between Eddie Hearn and Tony Bellew, Liverpudlian Meshach Spear was drafted in at very short notice to fight former Fight Camp competitor Kane Baker. Or actually, no, it wasn't in Fight Camp in the end, was it? It was postponed from Fight Camp, his previous fight, and he fought recently. But either way, Kane Baker against Meshach Spear will now be on the show on Saturday, presuming, of course, that both fighters and their teams pass their COVID-19 tests, which, you know, as the fight was only agreed late yesterday, I believe, presumably they'll be getting tested or have been tested this morning. And it usually takes a while for the results to come back. So if everything goes well, we will see them weigh in tomorrow. So hopefully 6 fights. It's not as the strong card it was before. I mean, for me, Rankin Marshall or Marshall Rankin was the best fight on the card, and probably should have been the main event, even though Ritson's a big name, of course. I think Ritson Vazquez has got the potential to be quite an ugly, messy fight. Even though Vazquez, we have seen him more aggressive in recent times than during his prime. He's durable, he's awkward. At this stage of his career, I think Ritson beats him, and relatively clearly on the scorecards, if not a late stoppage. But I think he's got the ingredients and the savvy and the cunning to make it a rough, messy, ugly night for the favourite. So I'm not sure what to expect from that. However, there are some reasons to be cheerful. Kes Ashfaq against his former gym mate, Mark Leach. I've said this before, it pits 2 top 5 British fighters. Leach at bantamweight moving up for this fight, and Ashfaq at super bantam. The winner of that will be right in line for a British title shot, you would think, against the champion Brad Foster. But yeah, it should be a cracking fight. Ashfaq, obviously, GB amateur, long time, Olympian. I think he won a European silver, Commonwealth silver. So mixed in incredibly high class as an amateur. Mark Leach done everything right so far as a pro, apart from I think one early defeat on his record, but come back very strong from that since. Very fast, very aggressive. Ashfaq, maybe a little bit more standoff, but very technically skilled. Style should mesh very well, I'd imagine. From what I've heard from people who've seen the spars that they've had a couple of years ago, it should be pretty pleasing on the eye of that fight. So that's still good. Joe Laws, always in exciting fights. The Benwell Bomber gets an unbeaten opponent, I think he is, in Ryland Charlton. So that should be exciting. And we see the debut of another former GB rep in Ellie Scotney, very good amateur who we've been waiting, and she's been waiting more than we have for her debut for such a long time now. And we're glad to finally see her back in the ring. She's a very endearing character, very down to earth. I think people are going to take her to their collective hearts, the public. And she gets off no easy debut for her against Beck Connolly, who, despite having a losing record, has been in with some really good operators on the female scene. So if Scotney's going to go places as a pro, she's starting in the right place by taking on a tough opponent for her pro bow. So I'm looking forward to that as well. We also see the battle of the Thomases. Thomas Patrick Ward, very talented, closing in on a world title shot. Got that great win out in America not too long ago. Going up against the ever-willing Thomas Asomba, who we saw most recently being outclassed by Sonny Edwards. And you would expect Thomas Patrick Ward, who's very slick, very good on his feet, great, technical fighter, skillful fighter, to have a little bit too much for a former Olympian who's probably a little bit small for this weight class and maybe been on the wrong end of a few defeats in recent times, particularly the Sonny Edwards. I think before that he was on a little winning run. I really need to check box rep before I do these things. But yeah, Asomba, good fighter, but I just think will be outclassed once again against Thomas Patrick Ward. So a decent enough show, but not what it once was, unfortunately. But through no fault of anyone's, really. COVID is affecting all walks of life at the moment, not just boxing, of course. And there's also a show on Sunday, MTK Global. I've got a show headlined by the return of Jay Harris after that brave world title challenge, where he did very well, exceptionally well actually, and he'll be looking to challenge at world level again. But for now, he'll be defending his Commonwealth flyweight title against Marcel Braithwaite, another former Sonny Edwards opponent, funnily enough. They're going at it in the main event. I think it's in Wakefield is where they're staging their shows at the moment. On that show, we also see the return of former world champion Paul Butler, who it was my pleasure to interview yesterday. I think that's going up tomorrow. He's chomping at the bit to get back in action and also to get back to top level. He should have too much for Ryan Walker, but it'll be good to see him back in action. He's very good to watch, I find, Paul Butler as well. I really like his style. He's got a great coach as well in Joe Gallagher, that thriving gym. Very kind of raw interview, emotional interview that I did with him yesterday on his part. Well, maybe a little bit on mine as well. But no, really engaging character, and I hope he gets back to some semblance of the form that saw him win that world title in the first place. So yeah, good show for MTK as well. I've promised Spencer Fearon that I'll tune in because he's going to be doing his punditry on the show or commentary, and he's a good friend of mine. So I've promised him that I'll listen in. He's always insightful to listen to on any subject really, so certainly on boxing. So I'm looking forward to that too. Just before I go, want to hear from you guys, of course, as always. Tell us what fights stand out for you over those two events in the UK this weekend. Who are you most looking forward to seeing? Who should we be keeping an eye on? Because I think over the two shows, there's a number of debutants as well turning over, not just Ellie Scotney. I think there's a couple on the MTK show as well. So let me know who you think we should look out for, what you think will be the result in the main event as well. Has Vazquez got it in him to spring an upset? Ashfaq Leach, anyone picking Leach for that? He's the naturally smaller guy, but I'd make him a very, very live underdog going in. And just want to get your opinions. Obviously, for all your Loma Lopez content, you've got the Bob Arum preview, which is on the channel, the Keys to Victory, which is on the channel. And also, we're going to be releasing, I think, tomorrow, or maybe even later today, the Lou DiBella take on the fight. Most people already know he's picked Teofimo Lopez, but has he changed his mind as the fight's got closer? You will find out. Really appreciate the time, as always. I'll be back on Monday for reflections, looking back on a very busy weekend of action, which is good to say in the current climate. 4:30 p.m. And then Thursday next week, FLEXpectations once again, 4:30 p.m. Thanks very much for your time, and I will see you all soon. Cheers.